Sorry. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another surprise edition of What the Fuck Paranormal Chat with the Naked Bigfoot. I, of course, am your humble host, Mike the Naked Bigfoot. I didn't have a show planned for tonight, so I was just going to let it roll. Hey, everybody. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, Papa Joey. What's up, guys? This is a not so formal show, which you guys have gotten used to me doing that. By the way, this is also my 75th show, my 75th video, I should say, on YouTube. I'm kind of proud of that milestone. 75 videos. I never thought I'd do 10, much less 75. Ooh, fuck. Um, so of course the rules of the show are still in place. Not here to harm, hurt, or damage anybody. Um, I am. If you have any small kids in the room, I will be cussing. It will happen. So if you don't want them to hear it, have them leave the room. Um, if you want to play the drinking game, feel free to play the drinking game. So every time you hear me say that's a story for another day, feel free to drink. But I don't think I'm going to say it that much tonight. Again, this being an impromptu show tonight. But I'm beginning to love doing those impromptu, unexpected shows. Well, I planned an episode for next week. This episode, of course, after this episode, for those who are not watching the live right now or watching the replay later on. And it's going to be about a place that I nicknamed it. In my journal, I nicknamed it Hex House. Um, I'm going to try not to give you any spoilers for next week's episode because it's actually a really, really good episode. It's going to be a really, really good episode. It's going to be a great story. You guys are really going to like it. Um, if you like scary houses, you're going to like this. You're going to like next week's episode. It's going to be pretty cool. Um, Brianna, what's up? Welcome. You ain't missed anything yet. Trust me. Um, I wanted to take a few moments tonight to let everybody know why I decided to do that episode. It's actually next week's episode is actually going to be a very special episode with me. Um, Last Thursday, I got a surprise visit here on the farm. I know. I don't do surprise visits anymore. I don't handle them well. But I really, really enjoyed this one. As some people know, during my travels and my paranormal journey throughout the United States and several countries and islands, that I had the opportunity to work with some truly amazing paranormal investigators out there. And there was a team and last Friday, one of these teams came by to see me that I literally haven't seen in probably close to 15 years. I hadn't seen them. We just stayed in casual contact with one another here and there, but I hadn't done any serious work with them I hadn't seen them physically for 15, well, I'm exaggerating, 15 years, it's probably closer to 12 years. Well, they came by to see me. Don't laugh at their names, okay? Their names are funny. They're clearly Southern names when I tell them to you. Um, it's a trio of paranormal. They have been investigating for so long. They don't have a fancy name or anything. There's Charlie, Bubba, and Jess. Jess is a woman, by the way, if you didn't know. Um, they're actually based outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Well, that's where their original home base was. Um, I met them going through Arkansas. They've done a lot of traveling throughout the South, helping people. Now, they are in my mind, the quintessential paranormal investigators. They go and help people. I mean, they seriously help people. They go in if someone is, they go in. They don't. They trust me. They have a healthy. They're healthy skeptics about everything. Um, well, I'm glad I could help tonight, Stephanie. I'm glad you're here. Um, they are really. I mean, they're as skeptical as all skeptical. They are. My phrase is. They're paranormally agnostic. They're a lot like me. They have to see it to believe it. They have to experience it to believe it. And they genuinely go out, and they go out to help people. If somebody's having a problem with a paranormal occurrence or supernatural occurrence at their home or place of business, um, they'll come out, and they don't charge. They come out. They have day jobs. They've always had day jobs. They come out and they examine the situation. They investigate it. They probe it. They do their background on the family. They do their background on the house or location, and they spend several nights there and sometimes several days uh, to gauge whether or not it's something actually supernatural or paranormal happening to this family. They get really involved, especially when they get really crazy when there's kids involved. Their priority is to keep a child as innocent as possible until they reach the point of adulthood where you can no longer keep them innocent. They truly believe that, so they give priority over families with kids over individuals. Also, older people too. We're talking about the elderly. If the elderly, they actually went to a real side note. Well, they went to a nursing home, and I'm in a retirement home, and you need to put quotation marks around this. It was a place where people dumped their older members of their family off to die, and there were several there were things happening there. Some of the residents there, the bedridden residents, claimed they were being attacked at night by something that was coming in the room and trying to strangle them, and it was scratching them and pulling them out of bed, so on and so forth. And they made it a point to go there. Well, two things happened. They found out there really was something there, and they found out something truly was there tormenting the people. And they actually, at the end of the investigation, they ended up turning in that whole facility to it was in Tennessee, the Tennessee Board of Health, and got them shut down at the end of the investigation after they helped these people and determine what was going on. That's when I first met them. Um, I had I'm not a reputation person, okay? Number one, I don't have much of a reputation in the world. Um, well, I didn't think I did, but apparently I do have a reputation in some of the more interesting paranormal circles out there, especially with people that have had that I've had firsthand experience with and dealing with throughout the South and parts of the United States. Apparently, my name got around quite a bit. Number one is being nutty. I've always been eccentric in my investigations and in my sticking my nose into stuff. I always jumped into a smile on my face, even when I was being terrified and felt like I was constantly in danger. I always did with a smile on my face because I was excited. I was in the middle of the action. I was learning something. They needed Bubba and Jess and Charlie. They needed somebody to come in because they figured out really fast that they weren't dealing with your typical haunting or typical spirit at the retirement home. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. I'm just going to tell you how I met them before I lead into the next story and how we became a team. Now, they found out that I was a couple of towns away in Tennessee. Um, oh, by the way, the retirement home was outside of Memphis. It was on the this side of the Mississippi River. Uh, some of the swampier, crappier areas of Memphis, where this retirement home is at. And I had already spent some time in Memphis. I had left Memphis days before they came into town, and I was in Memphis for a. I was trying to collect soil from the grave of Elvis Presley. I I had to go undercover as a tourist in Memphis and go to Graceland and take the tour. Um, but I had to get the one with the VIP passes, so I have access to the grave. Um, I ended up getting the soil, but I got into a hell of a lot of trouble doing it. But I got it. I got what I came for. Um, it was for something I was working on. I had to replenish some of my stockpile um, of mystical ingredients. So, and I needed that soil because that soil was especially charged. I wanted, and I needed it. I actually used it up over the course of the year for different projects. So I will have to tell everybody that story and explain my experience at Graceland. Because I seriously, honestly, um, and I'll get back with the rest of the story. When I was at Graceland, I should do a story about my time at Graceland. I should do a video about what happened at Graceland. Because during the tour, it was one of the last tours of the day. I was standing outside the jungle. He had the names for all the different rooms of. If you've never been to Graceland before, never been to Graceland and been to the mansion at Graceland, there are rooms. I've actually got a small amount of it left, Papa Joy. That's a good question. I've actually got a small bit of it. It is in my cabinet, by the way. It's in a vial in my cabinet. I almost used it all up. Um, but when I was standing outside the jungle room, and I had an Amityville horror moment. I felt somebody breathing, and I was by myself. Everybody else had moved on they went downstairs so they could go see all of all of his gold records and platinum records and everything that was on display downstairs in the basement area of Graceland. And I lagged behind, of course, because I was up to no good. And I felt something breathing on my neck, and there was nobody there but me. And again, I had actually gone underneath the rope and had stepped into the jungle room, which was the name of one of the rooms in Graceland. Um, I stepped into the jungle room, and right when I had both feet planted in the ugliest carpet known to mankind, um, I felt something breathing on my neck, something blowing on my neck. Um, it went from cold to warm. It went from icy cold breathing air hitting my neck to warm. Um, and it was my Amityville horror moment. I shit you not. Something whispered in my ear, and I felt the breath hit my left ear when it whispered it to me. It said, "Get out." And I looked around. I'll tell you, I thought I was getting busted by some of the security people there, and I already had a bullshit story on the tip of my tongue. Um, by the way, I had a camera. You couldn't take pictures in some locations here, but I had a camera um, hidden where all I had to do was take my hand and tap my chest, and the camera would go off. I could get any picture of what was in front of me. Um, And I looked around and went, oh shit, I've been busted. I turned all the way around and there was nobody there. And then somebody repeated, and it was a man's voice, repeated in my ear, get out. And I hit my chest right where I had my, the shutter release at. And I heard the camera start pictures, and the camera was so fucking loud when it was taking the pictures. It scared the shit out of me. And I hauled ass out of the jungle room and called the tour group so fast you couldn't imagine. Because, I was scared shitless. But I looked over my shoulder the entire time I was there after that. Because if that wasn't Elvis, it was a member of his family. Because Elvis had a lot of members of his family, extended members. He had aunts, great aunts, and uncles who lived at Graceland, and they died at Graceland as well. So if it wasn't Elvis himself, it was I knew it had to have been a family member that had busted my ass for walking into the jungle room without permission and defiling the place. There's more to the story, but story for another time. I might just do a video about the haunting of Graceland. Because it got weirder and it got shadier the whole time I was there, but that part scared the shit out of me. You have no. If you haven't been to Graceland and seen the upstairs is still committed. The very top floors are still living quarters where people still use it, and they were family members who still lived up there. There were none at the time when I was there, from what I understood from listening to the little tour person. But if you see these rooms, they had a name for all the rooms. The jungle room, of course, was on all animal prints and had fucking fake palm trees and jungle themed things throughout the entire room. And it was so ungodly. And leopard prints everywhere and zebra prints everywhere. It was the gaudiest, tackiest thing on the face of the planet. But during its time, and I'm sure that it was the happening place to be in the jungle room with Elvis Presley. That was his entertainment room, being in the jungle room with Elvis Presley. I forget why I went into the jungle room to get, because there was something I wanted to get. I saw something in there I wanted a piece of. One of the fireplaces still had ash in it, and I wanted some of the ash. I never made it to the ash, though. Before I got scared and ran. When something scared the shit out of me and I ran. That's the reason why I went to the jungle room. There was a fireplace over there. Hadn't been used in forever and a day. But no one had also cleaned the bitch out either, so it had ash still in it, and I could see it, and I wanted some of it. That would have been an awesome ingredient in my black bag of bad shit. Aside from the soil from Elvis's grave. By the way, I burnt the shit out of myself when I did that, because they have this eternal flame thing on his grave. It wasn't working really, really well at the time because it hadn't been there for that long. I mean, I'll let you age how long it'd been since I was there. But it sputtered when I was fucking around the gravesite. So again, I'll have to tell you that story. That's the reason why I was in Memphis, and I left Memphis, and that team came in to investigate that what was happening at that rundown ass um, elderly facility. And they, found out word of mouth, because there were a number of hoodoo practitioners in the area. Lots of people doing the paranormal knew. I always, go and meet any of the I call them my parapeeps when I'd go into a town. If I knew them, I'd go and say hi to them. Ask how they were doing, if they needed anything, and touch base with them to see what was going on in the community that they were in. If anything strange was happening that maybe I could help with, shit like that. And exchange stories and exchange wares as well. And they had caught wind that I had just recently left out of Memphis, and they tracked me down to my seedy little motel that I was in, and they called me and asked if they could meet me. I didn't know that you don't know you have a reputation until you find out you have a reputation, whether it's good or bad, okay? My reputation, when I found out that I had a reputation in the paranormal community, I found out that it wasn't bad, that I had a chaotic reputation. Um, I didn't realize that's what people saw in me, that they didn't consider me dangerous. Um, but they did consider me, my fearless aspect as being potentially dangerous. I would do anything, experience anything, and try to help with anything as well. Well, we met. We actually met in a parking lot. It was a Piggly Wiggly parking lot, because I didn't know if I was going to get kidnapped, raped, and have my genitalia turned into wind chimes. I had never met these people, so I had learned to be cautious with meeting new people with my travels. So I didn't want my genitalia turned into wind chimes, blowing on somebody's front porch or anything, or hanging up in their bedroom. That wasn't going to happen. Um, so I met him at a Piggly Wiggly, and we started talking. Um, well, they did most of the talking. I listened, because when I rolled up to them, of course, you have to show dominance. You have to show dominance. That's how you chase away bad people and bad things. You have to give an air of dominance when you do it. And I listened to them, because they felt it wasn't an average haunting. They thought it was some spiritual critter was there. Um, and I had a reputation for identifying and dealing with spiritual critters that were uh, tormenting people or places. And during the course of our conversations, we got to know each other, and I went out there with them. And I will have to tell that story one day. It's a fascinating story. We went out there because indeed something was there. Um, it was incredibly dangerous. Um, it was a Gestalt entity, and people have heard me use that term before, a Gestalt entity. And when you're dealing with a Gestalt entity, you have to break it apart, and to where it's together, all the parts Gestalt is where you have many things that gather together that become greater than they were as individuals. When they combine, they become greater and stronger than what they were as individuals. And most times, when those things are created, they become nasty creatures. Um, Usually, it's brought on by the environment a Gestalt is in, a Gestalt entity, a Gestalt spirit's in. If it's in an area of pain, suffering, and despair, um, they will give what they receive from the air around them. So they become malicious, and oftentimes violent. And so I was able to help them identify what it was, and we worked together. Hey, hey, hey! What's going on, Sandy? We worked together, to break it up and compel the pieces to leave peacefully. The story has a lot more details than that, but I just want to tell you how it ended before anybody asks. The story ended. That's how the story ended. Dealing with the Gestalt, and there are different kinds of Gestalt things out there. Oh, I don't want this to be a story about Gestalt. I need this to focus on next week. Okay, this paranormal team, they helped. You know, after that, we kept track of each other. We kept in touch with each other. Um, it was during the course of the investigation, and then the dispelling of Gestalt. We were hurt. Um, we got bruised. We got scratched. We got tripped. We had equipment fall on us. All kinds of things. They got really nasty when we were there. Really, really nasty while we were there. So, that helped us bond. We got to know each other really well. We kept in contact with one another. And it was about 5 years after the initial encounter. We had, met on and off throughout that time. And all of our travels, we'd run across each other and out as necessary. They contacted me. Oh, this place. They contacted me about a haunting. I'm not going to give you all the details of it yet. That's what next week's episode is for. Needless to say, um, something happened in this place that I call Hex House. If I just my screen just my connection was lost really weird. It was really weird. I just um fuck when I start talking about this stuff, something always happens, doesn't it? Um, those who are familiar with the cinder block house. Cinder block house is what it sounds like. It's made out of cinder blocks. Sometimes it has some brick and wood work into the front of it to make it look less like a barn, like a cinder block barn or a cinder block bunker. This was a cinder block house and a very poor and rotten part of the town that they were in. And and I'm not gonna give you all the details until next week. You'll have to tune in to next week's episode to get all the details. So that's my tease for tonight. Um, sorry, but something happened in this cinder block house, and it was a gentleman came around who was trying to help, who was buying up land in the town, but he was trying to redevelop it and rework it. Um, he was actually trying to do good in the town. He was trying to revitalize the town and revitalize Main Street. He was pouring a lot of cash into the town, a ton of cash into the town. But he couldn't get anybody, none of his construction crew, would work, and his landscaping crews would spend any time at Hex House because of what was going on there. Now, this wasn't local construction crews and landscape crews. These were out of state people he brought in to work there. Um, so they were unfamiliar with the history of this house. Again, you'll have to wait till next week to hear about the history of this house. They were unfamiliar with the history of this house. Um, it didn't take them long with what was happening at this house. It didn't take them long to leave and not go back to this house or set foot on that property ever again. Uh, they broke several contracts they had. A couple of the companies broke contracts with him because they refused to send any of their workers to work in and around that house because what was happening there. Fascinating case, scary case, terrifying case. Well, the team they got called in by the guy that was going to own the house and was going to rent it out very cheaply or sell it outright to a family, very cheaply. He called them in because he was at his wit's end because he was experiencing activities there as well, and he couldn't explain it. And he was a man of reason, but unreasonable, unnatural things were happening that his rational mind couldn't wrap around. So he had heard about them, and he had them come in. Um, and I'll give you more details about the story, about what happened to them when they initially went there, but the house pretty much chewed them up and spit them out. um, but they're not one they want to meet the challenge. So they got in touch with me and asked if I would come out there to help them identify what was going on there and have maybe a potential fix for what was happening there. And I'll end that part there because when I went there, when somebody invites you to some place that's potentially dangerous and downright fucking terrifying, you would like them to tell you that up front, but they didn't. They didn't tell me that at all. And I did call them a child of God. I called them everything but a child of God. I called them out of their names when we left there for them not giving me more heads up about what was happening there. But they wanted me to go in fresh and experience it with a fresh set of eyes and all my senses fresh. They didn't want it. They didn't want to uh, put any doubt in my head about what I was going to go there to see. So they kept me in the dark as much as they could, so I would walk in and experience what they experienced and help figure out what the fuck it was. By the way, for those who ever watched my Goblin House videos, this is the same paranormal team. They're pretty cool. They added members, they subtracted members, they lost people, they brought people on. The team has grown, it has shrunk, but the core three have always been there. The original trio have always been there. Well, last week, again, after that, we, you know, lost contact for a while again until Goblin House happened. And I got to go in and deal with Goblin House. So that was the last consult that I did before my body fell apart. That was before it fell apart really badly. That was the last major consult that I did, and it hurt me physically and mentally, and spiritually. And I told them I would never be able to do anything like this ever again at Goblin House. They respected that, but I did help them as well. There, the family there at Goblin House as well. Well, they came last week to see me unexpectedly. It was a wonderful reunion that we had. Um, we shared war stories about what they'd been doing since the last time we spoke. I shared my war stories about everything that was happening, what happened. And they looked at me and they said, "Do you remember Hex House?" I had to sit there for a few minutes. My memory's not what it used to be. And I said, "I think so." And they retold the story. And of course, I sent my son out to find my journals from that period of time, my journal from that period of time. And they brought it in because I took copious notes and drew many pictures. And we went through that journal together and talked about the experiences, what we went through at that place. And they provided me with an update of Hex House. And the story of Hex House and the update is what next week's tale is going to be about. I'll tell you what, guys. I've been to many places that were truly haunted. But this place, I mean, it was like the West. If the Amityville Horror House was real, um, if it was an actual play, if it actually was real, which I don't believe it was, and it was proven several times that it wasn't. Um, I believe that if there was to be a house like the Amityville house that existed in this world, West Virginia had one in it, and that was Hex House. Um, That'll just to whet make you salivate a little bit about what potentially I'm going to be talking about next week, since I'm comparing it to the Amityville Horror House. Um, I had to say um, what they told me, and I'm just going to say this as vaguely as possible, as to not give away anything for next week. By the time they left, um, number one, I was so happy to see them again, because I probably won't see them again after that last week. I'll never see them again. But that was one of the few cases, consults I went to, that I never felt closure with. I never turned the page from it. It was one of those open files that is never closed, but you store it away someplace and you forget about it, then you discover it by accident, and it begins to bug you again. Um, But they provided closure with that house last week with me, with Hex House. Um, it made me smile with what was happening there. Made me smile towards the end of the conversation. I was happy to hear how Hex House, the case of Hex House, was resolved. That should give you a hint that we didn't resolve it when we first went out there. We didn't. It took many years later for there to be a final resolution to that place, or what I consider to be a final resolution. So, uh, and that, and I'm going to conclude. I know it's going to be a short episode tonight because I just want to do a preview tonight. But I do want to take a moment to talk about paranormal investigators in general. There are a lot of people who do paranormal investigating who do it for likes on YouTube. Um, they fake evidence. They exaggerate evidence. They sensationalize what's happening there. Um, that's their prerogative. They do no service, though, to the people who have been in the trenches most of their life that don't have YouTube channels or podcasts or anything like that, or a TV show or a radio show. Um, they do it both for the sake of curiosity, but they also do it to help people as well, to understand, to help them understand what they're dealing with. One of the things that has always irritated me, especially with the shows on the Travel Channel, not all of them, but a good number of them, you'll have at the end of a supposed investigation where they either don't help the person at all. They'll look at them and go, yeah, you're fucked. This place is haunted and you're going to die. But they don't do anything to help them at all. They leave. But that's not why they were called there. Or they'll tell, or the person will go, oh, I can't help you personally, but I can give you the number and the prices that the people are going to charge you that you can call to have them come in and do the following. That's bullshit in my mind. I am a capitalist, but some things I draw the line at, especially when it comes to helping people. I know some people have got to make money, they got to make a living. I'm not knocking them on that. I'm happy they are. But I find it, on a personal level, I find it distasteful. That's just me. um, but that's not how I was brought up to be. I was brought up to use whatever talents that I had and whatever knowledge I had to help people. Um, and knowing that I helped them was reward enough. And that's what my friends, my paranormal investigating friends do. They go out to help people. They don't do it. They go out they try to find more about the unknown. One of the more interesting things they found out when they met me, and I started to trust them, and we developed trust amongst each other, is I let them peruse my big black book of bad things, which you always hear me talk about, the big black of bad things, which and part of that is a bestiary, all kinds of ritual stuff in it that collected. And they were completely fascinated by that book. I said, the book is still being written. There's more still going in the book. This book had started getting written by my ancestors, and I'm continuing to write in the book and add more knowledge to the book. But it helped them to understand there's so much more to this wild, insane, supernatural, paranormal world that we just don't understand. And it helped open their eyes even further, because they encountered up to that point, they'd encountered a lot of bizarre, strange things they were able to help people with. And if they personally couldn't help them, they would call somebody in like me, to act as a consultant, to see what I thought about it, to see if what skills I had could be brought to bear to assist. Um, I've always been honored and flattered, quite frankly, um, to be called and asked to come in and give consultations and see what I thought. Some of the more memorable ones didn't involve anything supernatural. I'd go in and realize that whatever happened was happening at the location was man-made. It was a man-made disaster. It wasn't anything supernatural or preternatural or paranormal. And everybody, including the people we were helping, were always happy to hear that. Not everything I consulted with or helped with, again, was not supernaturally related or paranormally related or caused. Um, and I was able to help them see that. I didn't go in thinking, oh, they probably have like a buggle or something in there. I've got to go in there with my hex bag and chase the buggles out. No, it ended up being the buggles would be like the neighbor's kids or something fucking with them. It's something to. I enjoyed helping people. They enjoyed helping people. Even if it didn't involve an elaborate ritual or cleansing to deal with the situation. So, well, guys, I hope you are all looking forward to next week's episode after hearing this tonight. Again, I want to give everybody a little taste of next week's episode, a little basis, a baseline, what to expect on next week's episode. It's probably going to go a little bit long too, because it's going to be fairly detailed. Next week's episode will be a lot of fun, talking about Hex House. But it also made me happy and re-energized my focus. Said, you know what? I'm going to tell that damn story. When they left, I looked over at my wife and my son. I told them, I am going to tell that story on YouTube about Hex House. Because that place is really fucked up. And, I think people, we're going into the season now to where we like hearing the scary stories and the haunted house stories and the specters and the ghosts and the wraiths and things like that. So I hope you enjoy it next week. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week with the mystery of Hex House. Have a good night, everybody. Again, sleep tight. Don't let the don't let the bed bugs bite. Again, it's going to be a fun episode next week. I hope this got everybody excited. Have a great night, guys.